Welcome to the Fram Filtered Texaco Camaro page. Wanted to give everybody just a quick recap on the Daytona race. I'm a little bit behind, but we had a little bit of an issue there if you weren't following our page. Want to give a recap on the Daytona race for the Optima Ultimate Streetcar that we ran. Also talk a little bit about where we're at with the car as far as upcoming races. And obviously there's a huge event happening at SEMA in Las Vegas, one of the biggest car events, shows for, the auto industry. And, every year for the last 2 or 3 years, we've been able to make it and race there. So going to give a quick recap on what we're going to have for that show and the opportunities there. But also to talk a little bit about, we're at our 10,000th follower on Instagram. So some of you may or may not know, but we lost our page. It was compromised at some point in July of 23. And we have just been trying to rebuild the page and get the followers back. A lot of people that I found out, would get some of the posts that I've been reposting and think that they're still following us because they followed us before. But, we do have a new page. It's Texaco.Camaro on Instagram and on Facebook. The YouTube page is still the same, but, there is a change there. And if you were following us before and you're thinking you're still following us, just make a quick check and see if you're following us. But we were, every 500 followers, we were giving away the 164 diecast car. And I get all the scams and stuff that are on the social media and all that. So I think there's 3 or 4 of the winners that I sent a message to, and, they were like, oh yeah, thanks. And then I would ask them, hey, send me your name and, address so I can send you this car. And then it's like you never hear from them again. It's like, oh yeah, here comes the scam. But definitely wasn't a scam. I'm not a scammer. I'm not in the business of scamming. So I was just trying to do something to kind of spur followers to get to 10,000 followers. We may do something now that we're past the 10,000 follower, but, super happy, super excited. The 10,000 follower will be getting communicated with here soon to get their diecast car. I may throw a little something extra in there for that one, but we're going to turn off the every 500 followers, gets a diecast car, but we may do something different, down the road, but I'll communicate that, as it comes. So just hugely appreciative of everybody following us. We're, trying to create our own content. We may come up with some other ideas down the road outside of Instagram and things like that. But, for now, just trying to share posts of me spinning out and burning off my tires. Those get a lot of traction for sure. It's fun to do, but it's costly on the tires and it's not very fast, so you don't really win that much. But I guess if you're not going to win, you might as well smoke the tires a little bit and give the fans something to take home as far as fun. So I know if I was a little kid or even just an adult or a fan or whatever, and cars start burning their tires, I mean, I definitely am watching that. I mean, it's it's a part of the car culture and in the auto world and car guy and car girl worlds. So just wanted to give a kind of a thank you for that, and so I appreciate it. So moving on to the Daytona race, the Optima Ultimate Streetcar Daytona Under the Lights event. It was fantastic. Optima and Advanced Auto Parts and FM3 and, the Ultimate Streetcar Association put on such a wonderful events across the country. I've never been to Daytona. The series hasn't been back there since 2019. So going back to Daytona, but going under the lights, I believe, was the first time that they've ever done that. It's really the first time that anyone's done it, because there's, outside of the Daytona 24, there's really not an opportunity for people to race under the lights. And that's, Jimmy Day was telling us, because the cost of the lights, which makes sense. Playing baseball and doing some recreational stuff here in Dallas. I know that when the lights come on, it costs more to rent that field. So a different dynamic when you're at Daytona, and those lights are super huge and there's tons of them. So we raced under what's called 20% lighting, but it's still really bright. But it made it really cool because you get a lot of shadows and you just get some cool pictures, and there's some out on our page that you can see. Unfortunately, we had a little event, so we didn't get as much footage on track as we would have wanted at the night. But we did get good footage in the daytime and a little bit in the nighttime. But I guess the footage we did get was pretty impactful. So the race at Daytona, getting there, I love Florida. I love going there. The track, the facilities, just so iconic. It's I always kind of think about, what's my most favorite track that I've been to. Last year I went to all the races in the Optima Ultimate Streetcar Series, and so I got to see a bigger handful than just the ones that are on the East Coast side or in the middle of America. I got to see the West Coast stuff, and I still reign true to Road America being my favorite track, and I don't know if that's because of what happened at Daytona, but I think Daytona goes up into a new level of speed and just having to be on point with what you're doing with the car. So, some of the other more technical tracks, you've got to be on point kind of mentally with what's going on as you go faster. And there's a lot of people that go a lot faster than me. So, I may be, average or a little above average, but I'm definitely not the fastest out there with my 69 Texaco Camaro. But, we were getting into the speeds of, 150 plus around the NASCAR banking, and then getting up to 164 on the straightaway. And then you come into some kinks. So you don't, if you're not familiar with how the setup is you don't just, go around the oval. There's a road course setup that you dip down on the inside, but on the backstretch from NASCAR turn 2 to 3, there's, some kinks that slow you down so that you're not just going full bore straight through there. So could we go faster? Yes. My car is geared to top out at 167 through the sequential, the SODIV that we put in. So, I don't really have a need to go much faster than that. That's pretty quick considering that you've got to shut the car down at some point and make a turn left or right. So, but really fun track. But I just remember your foot is in the accelerator and you're on the banking and you're literally probably like this, and you're just sitting there and you have you're going really fast. 150, and you really have time to think about like what, not necessarily what could happen, but just like, this is really fast. I'm sideways. My brain doesn't think I should be doing this, but the car, at least, my car is very stable. It's not moving. It's not floating. It's not really doing much. So that probably tells me I could go a lot faster through there because it's not pushing up the to the wall. But just the fact that something could go wrong and then you're going that fast and you're right there. It can happen going on flat surface as well, but it's just a mental thing. You got to get past that. And I think racing in Charlotte last year on the banking, I think it's 7 or 8 degrees less banking than Daytona, but still pretty steep banking. I think it's 24 or 26 or something like that. So I got that underneath my belt because I was very timid out there for sure. I wasn't going very fast. I didn't want to kind of push the car. It was my first time on big banking besides just doing parade laps around Texas Motor Speedway. But it was really fun. So Daytona, definitely a fun track. I would say, it's just a different kind of fun. And I'm excited if I get the chance to go back there again. I'd love to, and hopefully not have an event like I'm about to talk about that we had there. But super fun track, and it's not really technical except for the aspect of the speed and just the impact it has, I think, on the car from a heat standpoint, and even the right rear tire. You had to put more PSI in there, or at least I did. Somebody told me that we needed to do that. So, that helped out for me. There was a competitor, a friend of ours that, had a right rear tire blow out, but he saved it. Really good driver, really great car. So, it was nice that he was able to, come out of that. But those are the things that can happen. And I think, if you're just aware and always have your mind right, that if something like that does happen, that, you can drive your way out of it and, really be in a better situation than you would think would happen. But happy that nobody had any major issues at Daytona. My issue was, kind of major, but not too crazy. But we had a car fire, and it was on the night session. So we ran the first 2 sessions during the day, and then there was going to be, I think, 2 sessions at night. And so we did the night session under the lights. It's dark. It's fun. We're all pumped up in the pit area, kind of hanging out and doing our thing. But there's a lot of stuff going on through the weekend, right? I mean, this is Optima Ultimate Street Car. You just don't show up and do time attack and just go out there and try to be fast on the track. I mean, you're doing all sorts of things, with the autocross and peak performance challenge. You got D&E, and then you've got this and prep and this, and you've got to be certain places at the same time, and then you got to go back and forth. You got to get gas. It's just all sorts of different things that are happening. But I only bring those up because at some point, I think what my issue was at Daytona, and the reason why I had the engine car fire, it was because of me 100%. Not the car, not the way it was built, not the location of anything. I mean, it was nothing. It was just me. It was my issue. I am the one that's at fault for it. Is that I have 2 catch cans, essentially. One's a true catch can in the firewall, and then I have an oil air separator in the rear of the car, in the driver's side rear, that is that catches it. That's the one that fills up. I mean, if the engine gets too hot, or there's just a little bit too much oil in there, or it doesn't like it, or whatever may happen, that's the can that always fills up with engine oil. I mean, not tons, just, you got to drain it a little bit. So, but then I have the catch can up on the firewall, which is passenger side, and it's just above the header, and it's in its own little world right there. But we also have the Sadev sequential vented to it. And so I check that can, but I don't check it as often as I should, because every time I check it, every race for the last 3 years, it's dry. There's never anything in it. So I just always kind of defer to, it's more venting air or pressure or things of that nature, but there's just never anything in it. And, that changed at Daytona. So, and it wasn't engine oil. It was actually my transmission. And the issue wasn't just not checking the catch can. It was a culmination of events that built up and were basically hard and costly lessons that I've now learned. I mean, I'm not a super experienced racer and driver at this point. This is my 3rd year of doing anything like this. So I really learn as I go. And, I knew about the catch can. I don't remember exactly who it was, but had a catch can issue, and I heard them talking about it, that they forgot to check it and it boiled over, and they had a little bit of a fire. It didn't burn the car down, but it was just kind of, a fireball on track, and then he shut it down and got it taken care of, I believe. But so I've always known, I know you got to do that, but I think I got lulled to sleep. And I guess that's my PSA announcement, is that if you have certain checklist items that you need to do, always do them, even though you assume or think that doesn't ever happen, so it doesn't need to be checked, or it can be checked occasionally. So I think I'm going to come up with actually a checklist that I laminate, kind of like a pre-flight, pilot's checklist, where it's just like, okay, if this doesn't get checked off and, I missed the first run of something or whatever, I have to do that, because sometimes you get so busy. It's like, you're trying to hang out, you're trying to have fun, you're trying to talk to people, you're trying to do this, your car may have an issue, you got this. I mean, it seems like the time just goes away when you're at these Optima Ultimate Street Car events. But that's what makes it so fun, is that you're not really, sitting around that much. I mean, sometimes you can be, but if you have any kind of car issue, like I was blowing belts off at Road America, I blew one off at Daytona. So I don't know why I'm blowing blower belts off, but it's probably because I'm doing something with my driving and upsetting the tensioner. But you have those issues, and it's not hard to change those out. But it's just like another thing you got to add to the fire. But the point is that you get lulled to sleep with, oh, I don't need to check that because there's anything there. Let me tighten bolts under here on the bars. Let me get this. Let me check this one. And then you just kind of skip it. Check. Check PSI, and then you torquing the bolts down on the wheels, and it's like, you skip that stuff. So I would say that you need to have a checklist. I'm going to have a checklist. I'm just going to make sure that I hit these crucial items as much as you can. I mean, you can't, something's going to fail at some point. But so I got lulled to sleep on that catch can, but it didn't really start there. It really started back at my shop where I'm at right now. And, the SADEV sequential works phenomenally. There's no issue with heat of the SADEV transmission. It was purely me again that I use a Motul oil to go into the SADEV transmission oil. And so the plug, or the inlet, is just just a little plug that you spin off, but it's at an angle to where it's pretty close to the tunnel and the body, or just kind of the tunnel in there, and you can't get above it so that you could squeeze and pour the fluid down, right? So you've got to push the bottle and squeeze the fluid through a nozzle that's on there. And so you can get about 3/4 of the bottle in, but you always have a quarter that's not in. So then you got to get another bottle, you fill that one up, and then you squeeze it in, and then you just let it drain out to keep a constant level. But I also have a transcooler on there as well, and so if that drains out, you've got to do it. Drive it, do it, check it, make sure that you've got enough in there. So I had an idea of getting a little hand pump and just pumping the fluid in there. And I think what I did, because this is the first time I've done it, is I hand pumped the fluid in there, and it's kind of a thicker fluid to some extent, that I may have just pumped too much in there and didn't let it drain out enough. And so when I spun the plug back on, there's probably just too much oil in there. I mean, I don't think you can have really a ton too much, but because of that hand pump, I may have shot it so far into the lines and just everywhere that, maybe 100%, that's caused part of the issue, in that if you do have a little bit too much oil in engine or transmission, it's gonna find out where it wants to live and then go into the catch can. But because I've never overfilled the SADEV before, the transmission, either the T56 or the SADEV, whatever, I'd never had to deal with that catch can in the front that it was vented to. So that became the issue. Is it started with, I put a little too much, oil in the transmission for sure. And then at Daytona, and the angles and the heat, and you're just going, 2 minutes full out, over 100 miles an hour, almost for well over 2 minutes. You're going 130 plus. It just got hot, and probably the first 2 sessions, it started to fill up that catch can. And by the 3rd session, it just had enough and spit out of the breather onto the headers, and then caused about a quarter of the way into that last lap, which the lap before was my fastest lap. So I was really just going, 70, 80% speed, maybe going a little faster, but I knew I was going to shut it down. So I wasn't going to keep pushing the car, and the car was probably getting hot anyways. But I was on fire from that breather spitting that oil onto the header for, that period of time, 3/4 of the way around the track. So, I mean, I went through the whole infield. I went through NASCAR 1, NASCAR 2, NASCAR 3 and 4, and then I came into the pit. And then when I came into the pit, I was just done. And Jimmy's always there if you have an issue, or if you're just going to the hot pit, or if you're going to go off track. He's there directing traffic or talking to you or whatever. And I remember having my helmet on, visor down, and I was pointing. He was like pointing me this way, like frantically, and I'm like, no, I'm going this way. I'm done. I'm done. And he's like, and then he runs up to the car and goes, "You have a brake fire. Your car is on fire." And I was like, oh my gosh. So I pulled forward, never having a brake fire before. I don't even, didn't think I used my brakes that hard to create a brake fire, but maybe I did. But it wasn't. It was what we just talked about. And Jimmy got me out of the car. We kind of, just for a split second looked over. I ran over. He didn't really want me to, but I ran over and looked at the wheel well and saw a little fire in there. I mean, it looked like 5 to 6 inches that I could see. So it was definitely burning like some wires or plastics or whatever. It was burning something in there besides just the fluid. Maybe the fluid was still burning a little bit. But by the time that I walked around the car, because Jimmy's saying, get behind the wall. Don't worry about fire extinguisher. Get behind the wall. Get behind the wall. So I get behind the wall. And by the time that I just turn my head back around, and I'm kind of thinking, man, if that keeps burning, I'm not gonna be able to make another session. Boom! The hood's still down, and the car just exploded. I mean, it exploded because the fuel line was under high pressure. The car was off, but in some of the pictures, the lights are still on. I didn't turn the lights off. I just got out as quick as I could, but the car was off. And on these old cars, it's a push light situation. So if you have an old classic, you know what I'm talking about. So the lights were still on. There's 4 or 5 foot flames that are burning for like 4 or 5 seconds. I mean, after the fact, we know it was the fuel line because I drove so much around the track with that oil burning. It finally just burned through the heat coating and everything, and then eventually the fuel that was in that line. And the pressure, because it had high pressure line, but boom! I mean, it was massive. I know people were kind of like, when they see the damage of the car, they're like, "Oh, that wasn't too bad." And it was like, if you saw that fire and you were 10 feet away from it, like I was, I literally thought my car was going to burn down, right in front of me. The small fire, I was like, this is not great. This is not going to, I got something I have to fix here. But when that happened, I was like, it's totally done. It's totally done. Car's totally done. And, all this is happening within probably a minute, because the Daytona safety and fire teams were there probably within a minute or so, because I was at the pit lane. I was pretty close to where they're at. But by the time they got there, the fire had come back down just to the small fire on the other side. And so they shot it out. They felt like it was contained. They had a tough time figuring out how to open up the hood. But I heard one guy, which was like, it'll always resonate in my mind, that I heard one guy, the guy that was actually putting it out and trying to get the hood open and got it open and then all this other stuff. Some other guy had his stuff and was about to point it inside the interior. And the other guy goes, "Don't do it. It's contained. I think it's contained out here. Don't do it. Get me the water. Get me the water." Because they were using like some crazy fire suppressant stuff, that was like nasty. It goes in purple, dries like a light purple, and turns to powder. I mean, it's just corrosive and nasty, but it does the job. But that guy, when I heard him say it's contained to the engine, don't spray down the interior, because where that fire was and where he was probably going to spray is I have a false passenger floor that has the computer sitting underneath there. And that's exactly where they were just going to rush. And all my components, everything electronic is in the glove box. And it was just going to be a nightmare at that point. But so I'll always remember that. I'll always remember the fireball. And then I'll always remember being in the ambulance and they made you go to the ambulance to just do a check or whatever and do blood pressure. And Jimmy Day came and opened up the door to check on me to see, what's going on, give me an update on my car, just to make sure that I'm not like freaking out. And I was just in there with the paramedic guy, and he checked my blood pressure, and then he told Jimmy, is like, yeah, his blood pressure is like 118 over 70, and it's like nothing happened. So, that was an interesting little minute in time that, my blood pressure was pretty much stagnated, but I think it had to do with the fact that I knew my car didn't burn all the way down because it was out by the time I went to the ambulance, and that they didn't spray down the interior. So with those two things off the table, I'm sure my blood pressure probably went from whatever is high to normal after that happened. So totally thankful for those Daytona Fire and Rescue teams that are out there, safety teams that are out there, the NASCAR team guys that do all that stuff. So very well-trained people. Thank you to Jimmy. Thank you to Optima Ultimate Streetcar for just the events and the series they put on, and having the professionalism and the people that are out there, and making us wear all of our fire gear and all that stuff. Even though my situation wasn't, as dire. I mean, I guess at some point, if I was on track longer, that fuel line could have burst while I was driving, which would have continued to send fuel out of that line and would have been a pretty big situation potentially. So you just don't know what's going on. So the culmination of just dumb errors with overfilling the transmission potentially, or yes, I did, and not checking that catch can because it's always dry, and getting lulled to sleep, not having a checklist. Those were the issues. So, costly learning lessons and mistakes. But the next thing that I want to kind of just say is that we are getting the car fixed. We are about a couple weeks out from having it fully back. So I want to give a shout out to Dusel Designs. Mike Dusel, he's a two-time Optima Ultimate Streetcar champion. But Dusel Designs, the team up in Lewisville, Texas, about 20 miles north of Dallas. They, as soon as my car got it back into DFW area, Dallas-Fort Worth, he said I could have it right up there, got it right in. We had to roll it off. They had to start taking it apart, and just got right back onto the car because we were trying to make a couple of other races. So by the time this comes out, I would have missed Good Guys here in Texas at Texaco Camaro Speedway, which I love going to Good Guys. And I'm going to miss the VIR Optima Ultimate Streetcar, which I had the opportunity of winning that race last year. Oh, and I forgot to say about Daytona is I actually did win Daytona in the GTV class. So, the way it works is that I needed to get a nighttime in, and I had my fastest time I put in was at night. So I take my during the daytime and my nighttime. And so that allowed me, because those were the last parts of our series, was just to run one more, track event to try and get a faster time. But I had already gotten mine in and before the fire. So that allowed me to have enough points to win. And so that was exciting to get the hardware at Daytona, the trophy there. But, going back to VIR and the race I'll be missing right before SEMA, because, Mike Dusel Designs, like I was talking about, that's fixing the car, built the car. I really gave them the mandate to say, look, let's do it right, and let's do some enhancements. So, I'm not going to tell you what the enhancements are here, but, we definitely enhanced ourselves. We usually do fairly well on the D&E, but we got some things to do better on D&E. So and for performance, not just for show car or looks. So we've got some things that we've put into the car. Maybe you've seen it on the page or not, so it's not that huge of a mystery. But we're not going to be at VIR. We are going to be at SEMA. So SEMA, we are going to be there. I mean, God willing, and everything happens appropriately. The car will be ready. We will be ready to have some fun, ready to race, ready to see what I think is going to be potentially a GTV showdown against the other classes for the ultimate streetcar winner. So the big winner, the fastest car out of everybody, is what everybody's running for at SEMA. Is to, and it's not called the SEMA race. It's just we do some of our elements at SEMA at the show, but it's called the Optima Ultimate Streetcar Invitational. So it's an invitational race that you can't pay to get into. You got to win to get in, you've got a point to get in, or you have to come in through a sponsor's entry. So I think they get like one entry. So it's the top 100 cars in our series, and I don't know what the total numbers are that race in our series, but I would say it could potentially be 2, 3, 4, 500 cars a year that kind of come in and out. So it's the top 100 are going to compete for who gets the crown of the Optima Ultimate Streetcar winner, total winner. So I won't be going for that, but Chris Smith, Schmitty, that's in the GTV class, which will be the champion this year in GTV. So we'll take the crown away from me that I've had for the last 2 years. But he's a great competitor, great racer, great driver, great car. Just checks all the boxes, but he is so close to being the points champion as well for the year of all the classes. And so I think if he goes to VIR, he could potentially pull that off. Not sure how that's going to shake out, but Bob Sobey and his all-wheel drive GTR is leading it right now. He won the Optimal Streetcar last year, so that's going to be a great battle at VIR. Especially, I'm going to be watching the live streams on Ride TV to see how that goes down. If that battle actually meets up, but not even 4 weeks later, they're going to be at SEMA doing the same thing. So that's going to be fun. I'll get to see that firsthand. But so a lot of cool things going on. I don't know where I'm going to sit in the GTV point standings right now. I'm second. I could stay there. So I think at best I'll be second in GTV class this year. But so happy for Chris Smith, Schmitty, to be the points champion. He actually was just here in Texas and won at the Good Guys. He won his event there. So he's the Good Guys pro class champion across the board, not just at Texas race, but he did 3 or 4 races and got a perfect 600 points. So, he's on a streak. He's on a win streak, but so happy for him. So getting a little long on the video here, but just wanted to give everybody a recap. Thank you so much for the 10,000 followers, and again, any of the content that's on my page, if you want to share it, use it, whatever, for your page. I don't care about sharing content. I know people get upset about that and, whatever, but, it is what it is. Just share it if you want to share it. But so thank you for that. And hopefully we'll have some other giveaways going, and we'll definitely see everybody at SEMA.